Want more positivity in your life? Subscribe, turn on notifications, follow us, and all that techie stuff. We'd love to hear from you. Comment, share, or give us a thumbs up. We are grateful to have you hanging out with us at Matt Logan Speaks.
With me today, I have special feature guest star Steven Stamp. Steve is a man living in long-term recovery. He is married, father to 4 beautiful children. Currently, he is a boiler operator within the city of Rochester, and he shares 13 years of sobriety. Steve has quite the story to tell, but it is his story to tell. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Steve Stamp.
Hello.
Hey, Steve, thank you so much for being here today. If you could share with us the journey of your story, it's a good one. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for quite a few years, but if you could share with the audience where your journey's taken you, starting from the bad to present day.
Hello, thanks for having me. I guess right out of the gate, I started as an 11-year-old stealing cigarettes and smoking cigarettes, and that evolved to smoking marijuana by the time I was 14, and by the time I was 16, I was into the harder drugs, the meth and the acid and shrooms, and tried to stay away from alcohol because my dad was an alcoholic, and I didn't want to be anything like my dad, and it didn't take long before I'd drink at parties on the weekend, and no off switch. I'd always overdo it. It was drink till I threw up every weekend, kind of thing. So I kind of shied away from drinking. I didn't want to be that. But by the time I was 17, I was living on my own, and then was in and out with my parents. They had gotten a divorce when I was 16 or 17 years old, and it would be couch surfing or living with friends, and then back to dad's or back to mom's, and staying with my dad. It was a drink fest, and so I really just started to have a knack for drinking every day, and that was kind of the rough of it. I spent 16 years drinking and using drugs, and drinking was my specialty. That was the one that seemed to be a daily. I thought if you worked hard, you get to play hard, and for 16 years, that wasn't really an issue. I would do my job, and I would drink, and had several, blackout. That's all the stuff that goes with drinking. Lots of blackouts, lots of regrets, and feeling sorry for myself and what I'd done to others, and just the life of a drunk. I had probably 5 to 10 situations where I should have probably gone into the hospital because I had such severe alcohol poisoning. I remember these times because it would take days to recover, and it was typical living, though, because it's the only way I knew to live. We'd do that. That's what I surrounded myself with. All the people that I was with would party like I did, So when I was 20, 21 years old, I started, I would peddle small amounts of marijuana or shrooms or crank or whatever, just because I'd get mine for free then. And I'd heard that the police were kind of zeroing in on me, so I started to panic a little bit. When I was 21, 22, I snatched a girl and headed for Idaho. Lived in Boise, Idaho for a few years. Got married to my first wife at that time, and we were there for a few years, and nothing changed, except I developed a cocaine habit out there because cocaine was more prevalent than crank was. And I call it crank because in my day that's what it was. It's meth now. But I would be a weekend warrior, or I'd be on it for a few days and off, and it was just always a mess. My life was always a mess, and some sort of I'd be messed up in one way or another, but I was always drinking. And so the Idaho thing worked for a few years, and I really loved it out there. But my wife at the time, she was a little too far away from home, And I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she wanted to be back to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or back closer to her family. And I didn't want anything to do with Sioux Falls, South Dakota anymore, because that's where it all began. I knew what my life had in store for me if I would have gone back there. And it was a tough decision because I have family there and that, but I said, I'll go back, but I'm not going anywhere near South Dakota. She says, well, there's this town called Rochester, Minnesota, and we could go there. I could work as a dental assistant or whatever and go back to school. And that's what she wanted to do. And I reluctantly came, and that's how I ended up in Rochester, Minnesota about 15 years ago. Still the same lifestyle, drink every day. Just never changed. Wherever I went, there I was. And we were here for a few years, and I would just mess up all the time. I'd end up back on meth and dealing with the daily drinking and trying to hold it together. And society was the problem, and everyone else was the problem, and I couldn't figure out why my life couldn't get any better. And then it happened. This is after like a 16-year career. So then it happened. She had an affair on me, and that was the end of the marriage. And for the next 9 months, I was miserable. I didn't draw a sober breath. I didn't know when I'd wake up at 5 o'clock if it was 5 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon. Depleted all my funds. I got like $5,000 from the house we sold, and had credit cards, and all that money was going to get in student loans. I'd started school because I was maxed out at $12 an hour. My career at that time was a hotel maintenance. I'd work in the hotels and get minimal pay with no insurance, and that I couldn't sustain life at that wage anymore. Trying to cover bills and do everything else, and support my drinking habit, which was every night in the bar, and it was just a mess. And so after this divorce, like I said, the next 9 months were the absolute worst, and boy, it was tough living. And I made her feel like I was a victim. And my sponsor put it best once I got down the road to recovery a little bit. I loved my drugs and alcohol, and I had an affair on her with my drugs and my alcohol. And she loved other men. So that's where we ended up. And but it was great to make an amends on that whole deal. But that next 9 months, I got another DWI. The world was falling apart. I depleted every bit of funding I had. I was about to get kicked out of college on a 2-year program. I don't know how I made it through the first year, but I missed so many days, and just being too hungover to go, and so I was really struggling, just absolute end of the road. I'd taken this job at a hotel down in Rochester, and I would stand on top of that building and just think about jumping off. It was overwhelming, and life had become overwhelming, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I kept dumping booze down my throat every night, and it was just, I was at the end of the road. And like I said, I got another DWI, so I had to start doing treatment, and it was a blessing in disguise, really. I mean, I was getting my food at Channel 1, going to churches. I was 3 months behind on my rent in a house that I was just kind of maintaining for someone over the summer. And it was time to go back to school, and I'm already failing out, so I don't, what am I going to do? And so I started this recovery thing, and I had tried to quit over this course of my drinking career. I tried every way to quit. I'd make deals with myself, and I never hold up to my end of the deal. I'd try to quit for the wrong reasons, or I'd not drink booze and just drink beer. And there was one stint in there where I would only drink hard lemonade, Mike's Hard Lemonade. Now, I don't know if you know what 20 Mike's Hard Lemonades a night will do to your stomach, but it was a mess. Just always deal making. I only do meth on Fridays so I can be back for work by Monday, but Monday'd come and I'd still be on the meth, and it just snowball. It was a nightmare. And so I started into this treatment program, and I made another deal with myself. I'll just smoke pot while I'm in treatment, and I'm going to get ahead of this DWI and start to get my life back together, but nothing was coming together. And then I got kicked out of treatment, or almost kicked out of treatment. She says, you can't smoke marijuana while you're in treatment. It's against the rules. So I'll be damned if I wasn't able to quit smoking marijuana, and I was just amazed, and so then I thought, well, maybe there's something to this treatment thing, and I only got to do it for 2 months or 3 months, so I can tough that out. I've done it before, and slowly but surely, I was able to put everything down. The lady tore up my release papers from treatment, and I said thank you, and that's one of the things that set me the right way, when she allowed me to keep coming to treatment, because if I would have got kicked out, I would have been sitting in jail. And I definitely didn't want to sit in jail. I'm not one to, I don't like sitting in jail. I've only been there a few times, but it sucks. So I started putting together these white knuckle weeks or days of not using or drinking, and there was nothing better. My life was just in complete turmoil. I had nothing left. There was nothing left. There was no people calling to say, Steve, how you doing? There was no. I was still such a victim of circumstances, and society was still the problem, and there was no fixing me, and it didn't matter about the drugs or the alcohol. There was no fixing me. I had lived the only life I knew to live. I've already been living it, and it was not good enough. And so through treatment, they suggested going to some meetings, a couple times a week. And I remember my first meeting, me and a couple guys from treatment went in there, and there was one dude in there that said some profound stuff that really he was talking about ego, and I didn't have any idea what ego was, but he said it in a firm way that stuck in my head. For some reason, I started to contribute, not sharing at meetings or any of that, but I started to succumb to the idea of recovery. It's the people were nice, and I wasn't used to nice people, and I was getting through treatment like I was supposed to, so that I wouldn't have to sit in jail for this third DWI, and I was just trying to do it all that way, and I was living pretty good. I made it a couple months without using any form of drugs or alcohol, and this was in 2000, at the end of 2007, and I was able to start I borrowed money from Mom, and I was able to start school again, and just everything was, I was able to get through the depression and my own worst enemy, myself. I was able to do something different, and so I had made it to a few months of meetings, and then I went to South Dakota for Christmas, and everything was great, and I was, not using or drinking, and life was great, and I had a great family Christmas, and then 2 days later I was on the floor with a needle in my arm and high on cocaine again, and I had no idea. I had been doing this treatment, everything, recovery. I've been for 2 months, 3 months. I've been doing good, and all of a sudden, just like that, it was, here I am on the floor again, and that was a bad night, and I know I was close to the end that night. There was too much use. I pulled through. The next day, I told my mom I made it home. I'm driving around Sioux Falls. I was back in Sioux Falls and driving around Sioux Falls with no license, trying to get rid of dirty needles at 4 a.m, trying to find a place where so no one would find them and it wouldn't be it was just a complete insanity. And that was my last use. And that was the next morning I told my mom, I said, Mom, I did it again. I'm sorry. I love you. And I'm going back to Rochester. And I headed back to Rochester. And there was this one dude in meetings who always talked, and everyone respected. And I called that guy on my way back to Rochester, and I said, here's what just happened. He says, well, no wonder. I mean, you're an addict. Of course it's going to happen. You have no defense. You have a disease that is it's not just going to go away. You can't wish it away, and you can't fake it, and he said, expect more of the same if you don't do nothing about it. And so I got back to Rochester, and I had a sound resolution that it was time to change. My life could not be that way anymore. I couldn't take it. And so I got back, and this guy immediately started working the steps with me of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I hadn't done any steps before that. I just knew I had a problem. Step one, I lived step one for 16 years. But this guy started the steps with me, and so I was able to stop, and I don't know how much to go into AA or walk through the steps, but without God, I would have been able to do nothing. Like I said, I was my own God. I tried my own way a dozen times. It just never worked. And I had a resentment. I didn't know it was a resentment, but I had a problem with God. My miserable existence was my problem with God. Why everyone else gets to have this happy life, and I get stuck with what I got, And my sponsor tricked me. He says, so you're mad at God, huh? It's like, yeah, I have nothing to do with the God thing. I don't get it. It's not fair. God's been mean to me. I've been miserable. And he says, well, if there's a God that you're mad at, then there's a God you believe in. And it's like, you tricky sucker.
Wow.
It's like, okay. He's like, so what makes you think if you have faith in this God, that it can't get better? And so I was tricked into believing in a God and a power greater than myself. And I can't really define it to this day, but I can tell you, for me, it's, and I appreciate church. I have a good time when I go, but for me, it's an internal job. My God is on the inside. And I've come to learn that. I just didn't get that. It wasn't like I turned my will and my life over and everything was better, because it still wasn't. I had a lot of inside cleaning up to do. And so he tricked me into believing in this power greater than myself. He didn't trick me. He just rearranged my thinking, And I remember the night I turned my will over. It's a quick story. I was living in this basement of a house, and like I said, 3 months behind on rent. Nothing. Sandwiches from Channel 1. I was making a sandwich, and it was a glass jar. And rather than take 2 trips to the fridge, I tried to carry everything at one time. And this is going to sound completely insane, but this is my moment. And I dropped the mayonnaise, and it hit the ground, and the jar broke, and mayonnaise went all over the kitchen. What turned out to be I could clean it up. Instead of that, I just went into a complete rage. I destroyed the kitchen. My dog was hiding in the closet. It was complete rage, and what that was my jumping off point. I couldn't imagine life without alcohol. I couldn't imagine life with it. And it was just a complete rage. It was psychotic. It was crazy. And I landed on my knees in this living room of this basement, and I said, God, I need help. And the flood of I don't know if I was on my knees for 5 seconds or 5 minutes, but the rage all left, the complete insanity all out. I could feel it all leave my body. It was like an out-of-body experience. And that was me turning my will over to God. I said, God, I need help. I can't live like this. Because like I said, I couldn't imagine my life without the drugs and alcohol. I didn't know it. I didn't have a single idea what it could be like to live without drugs and alcohol. My dog came up and started licking my face, and I cleaned up the mess, and I went on about my day, and I just, from that moment on, I felt completely different. Wow. I felt like I had let go, and
wow.
So we kept working steps 4 and 5. I made a list and found out who I was, and I shared it with someone. I shared all them dark secrets, and it turns out there was nothing really exceptional or out of the ordinary. I shared with that man and God the way I had lived for my entire life, and in 6 and 7 we asked that way of living and thinking be removed, and 8 and 9 I set out to make right the wrongs that I had made, and a lot of that had to do with changing my living. It was most of the amends I made, people said, just stay sober, just stay sober, we like you a lot better this way. And that was cool. And then, steps 10, 11, and 12, I try to make right my wrongs on a regular basis, so that I don't carry the weight of the world on my shoulders anymore, and I don't live in guilt and shame. I get to live pretty free today, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. So it was an internal job. It had to be done from the inside out. And, today I use prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand Him. And that's the beautiful thing about this program. There's no, the program of recovery. There's no, you have to do it this way. If they'd made rules, I wouldn't have followed them. So I'm close with my Creator, and I'm closer today than I have been in a long time. I was 7 or 8 years into recovery, and by the way, everything started changing. But when I got sober, I started off making sandwiches for $7.25 an hour, and I got a free sub every day. And that's where I started. I had nothing, so I started at this sandwich shop, and that evolved into someone in the program that had a fencing company saying, hey, you want to come build fences for the summer? And so I went and built fences for $10 an hour. And during this time I finished school. I had someone help me, and my instructor helped me. I had missed so much days that I wasn't going to get my boiler's license. But my instructor said, hey, we're doing a project at the school. I can get you extra hours. You can make up the hours you lost. And that was doing an asbestos abatement. So I just had to move furniture around so they could take the asbestos out of the college. But it got me my hours I needed. All this stuff started to happen. And then one day I'm sitting in a meeting, and a guy calls me and says, hey, we're looking for help. And that's how I landed my job. I didn't even apply for it. And today I have a great job that provides me financially to support my family and the fun activities I like to do. I've met so many wonderful people, and that's, I had so many loose acquaintances when I was using. Never really anyone close, like that really tight friendship. I have a couple, but not like I do today. Today I have literally dozens of people I could call at the spur of a moment and ask for help, or bounce things off of them. It's really cool. But I met my wife in recovery. She's not far behind me with 13 years, and it's been great. Like, God's provided us well. She's self-made. She's a college graduate too, and we have a beautiful house. And then we decided to have these beautiful children together, and so we have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, McKenna and Tyson, and they are a handful, but we wouldn't have it any other way. We're living life. We're part of society now, which before I could never grasp, and so we're doing things the right way. But so 8 years into recovery, I started having these problems with anger, and can't figure out what's going on. depression's kicking in, and I just don't get it. I'm working with God. I'm trying to do things and live life the right way, and I'm just struggling. And so I started going to the doctor and trying to figure out, and I tried all these antidepressants, what's going on, what's happening. And eventually the doctors decided that I'm diagnosed with bipolar 2. And I want to share this quick because I feel it's really important. It was hard to get through, and I did it sober for the most part. I stepped out of the recovery and tried my own way for a little bit, but I quickly learned that I needed to put my faith back in God. So I started taking bipolar medication, and I've learned a lot from it, but what I've really learned is this is another stepping stone for me to be able to reach out and help people that are struggling. I've been able to, with the medication, find a decent balance, and
Wonderful.
No one wants to say I have mental illness, but I've been able to do it and walk through it, and now I can share with others that it's possible. Recovery is still possible, even if you have a mental illness, even if you have more on the inside fighting you, because it sucks. These bouts of depression suck. No one wants to live with that.
No.
And then when you're doing it in recovery and you don't have that out, when I heard I had bipolar, the last guy I know that had bipolar hung himself in Silver Lake Park. I thought my life is over, but it's not.
No.
I found a medication that works for me, and that's, my life is not going to be defined by mental illness. My life is not going to be defined by drugs and alcohol. My life is going to be defined in recovery, not just hanging on the outside.
So, and I've had the opportunity to know you and your lovely wife. She is amazing, and I know what a support system she's been. And I also know that you have helped so many of the younger men that are, especially the newcomer coming in, because that is so crucial to help that newcomer come in. And what people don't understand is that we can still have a life that is just rich and full. Our lives do not have to be boring. Life does not have to be over. Yep. And we can go on. And I know that you still continue, even to this day, sharing your strength and experience and hope. And even though our venues are a little bit different, where we meet is a little bit more different now. But I know that you're still out there sharing the miracle of the program. Everybody has a different pathway on what you choose. The walls of AA have saved you. We also know that this is a we program. It's not an I program. And, congratulations, though, on the 13 years of sobriety. That's huge. And you continue to still be a source of strength. I personally have had the opportunity to hear your story. And I'm so grateful for you to be sharing it with the audience today. And it takes great courage to come from where you're at, and being at the bottom, where our only recourse we feel at that time is to be done with us. And now you've moved forward, and the life you lead today is nothing short but of a miracle. So thank you so much, Steve, for coming here today and sharing this wonderful story of recovery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's really nothing better than helping to pick someone up. That's what saves me, and helping someone in their journey, especially at the start when everything seems impossible. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast of Addiction Abuse Recovery, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sure you did, as I did. I want you to know that if you want to follow along, just go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Apple Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just search out Matt Logan Speaks. We have all kinds of great content for you. Hit the notifications button so that when something new comes up, you're the first to know. Have a great day.